Greetings, heathens and heretics, and welcome back to In the Abyss Lounge Sessions. Myself and the voice of reason. Is that it? Is that all you got to say?
Yeah, I'm staying silent the whole episode.
No, well, that's going to be fucking fun then, isn't it? Yeah, we're back in Tregenza Towers once again, and doing a few other things. So we're sort of talking, 3 album runs again, and we've got a couple of other new things we want to talk about, and maybe start a couple of arguments. But we shall see. What are we doing then? What's in the bag?
What's in the bag? What is in the bag? I'm going to put my hand down here and get it bitten off by some sort of green alien. The bag.
That's my cat you're talking about.
Oh, well, sure it me up. The Black City Records bag in Bristol, our good friends, for all your heavy metal record needs. And it's true, because it says so on the back. So there you go.
It does exactly what it says on the bag.
Which, absolutely, we're allowed to say that without getting sued. But yes, let's have a look. So we're going to have a look at 3 albums today. Well, 3 in a bit, but certainly 3 albums we are going to focus on. And this might be controversial, but we don't care because we stand by these 3 albums, and we think this is still overall an absolutely fantastic run and very important in both metal, rock, and actually pop music as well.
Oh, hello.
Yes. So we are going to talk about...
Oh, look, you fucked
Here
up.
we go. Complete...
Never get your strap on in the wrong place.
That's not the first time that's happened. We are talking about High and Dry by Def Leppard, followed by, of course, Pyromania
by
Def Leppard. And, well, Def Leppard again, Hysteria.
Right, so the first question to ask is why have we chosen these 3? Because we could have gone with On Through the Night onwards. We could have included Adrenalize, which we'll probably talk about in a minute. But why have we gone with these 3? Why specifically these 3 albums?
Well, I think mainly because my argument was these are the 3 best.
Fair enough.
Which is very straightforward. But I think
wanker.
when you, I tell it like it is. I think when you consider, I think the nature of the first album, which was obviously produced not by Mutt Lange, and of course the 5th album, Adrenalize, followed the death of Steve Clark, but also was pretty much in that next period of rock music during right in the middle of grunge, and we were very much in a new period. Whereas these 3 are as rock music gets when it comes to period music.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think these are probably the perfect 3 albums to see Def Leppard's progression.
Yeah.
Because On Through the Night, it's pretty raw, it's pretty rough. High and Dry, still got the element of that, and it gets more polished up to Hysteria, which is like a fucking shiny ceramic pot of an album.
Yeah, I mean, that's, plugged through the entirety of Silicon Valley, quite frankly. But yeah, no, very much. I mean, you can see the progression in terms of production. As we know, Mutt Lange joined on High and Dry. He's seen the potential of them. Of course, on that first album, it is very American rock. I mean, they got bottled at Reading 1980 because they were going that way rather than sticking to the sort of raw new wave of British heavy metal approach. But that's the approach they always wanted to take. And it's odd because I expect a lot of that crowd liked American rock music. It's always confused me that. But yeah, they took a bit of a hammering, but they stuck to their guns, which was quite appropriate really, because Mutt Lange said, you've got something a bit different. Your songwriting now, the way you do your choruses, it's going to appeal to the American market, and I can give you something a bit extra.
And you're such pretty boys as well.
Well, yeah, it took a while actually. a few different haircuts certainly on those early albums.
I mean, like High and Dry for me, obviously you've got great songs on. You've got Bring It On the Heartbreak, which is probably Def Leppard's first kind of big song, not necessarily hit single, but
hit single was a bit of an interesting one when you consider what their career was like, especially in the UK.
It took a while.
Bring It On the Heartbreak, absolutely. I mean, they re-recorded it, didn't they? A couple of years later, after Pyromania had hit the market properly. But yeah, it's it's a power ballad. Let's be honest with you.
And we love a power ballad.
And that's absolutely fine. But they could do that. Mark Langer recognised that from the start. You don't have to just stick to, just being a rock band. You can, you can appeal to the ladies. And I'm not saying that to be sexist. That was genuinely the mentality.
But that was the thing back then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's what it was all about. So you can't get away from that. That was the era. That's what people joined rock bands to do. You only have to watch,
anything.
The Fall and Decline of Western Civilization.
Well, yeah.
That says it all. I want to join a band. I want to get laid. That's what it was all about. So, obviously, thankfully, things have changed, but that's where it was. And Def Leppard were very much part of that.
Yeah, I mean, no offence. I love Yorkshire, but if you come from Sheffield in that period, then, I mean, you've got to talk about Sheffield in some ways because that. It's an absolute hotbed of musical activity at that point. And it's not just Def Leppard. You had the Human League doing their thing, and they were
any excuse.
Yeah, there we go. But dystopian electronica. Of course, that also morphed into Heaven 17. And in the background, I'm sorry to say, you had Pulp, who were very influential on what they did.
That's it.
So there you go. But no, Sheffield, that period, whatever was in the water at that point, they were doing something good because we got some great music overall out of it. But we're going to talk about Def Leppard, before I get a slap.
Yeah, you will. Right, so from there, then obviously Pyromania comes next. So this is where it all starts to really explode for Def Leppard, isn't it? It's like I said, you can see or hear the progression in terms of their sound. It's getting a bit more polished, and we'll probably sort of discuss this a little bit more right at the end, but. There's always the argument, isn't there, between Pyromania and Hysteria, which is the best album, and it is a really tough call, but we'll come back to it in a minute. But this is right.
This is an all-timer as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Langer recognised that they had to be taken to a different level. A level up. It's 1982 when it's being recorded. Production technology is improving. And how do you stand out? Because obviously, new wave of British heavy metal, it's hurtling full force. It's taking over the world, so it's doing its thing. But how do you stand separately to that? And Langer recognised, look, I can do the choruses with you. I've done that with AC/DC, but you're young and you want to sound like that. You want to sound fresh and vital and forward thinking, even though you're doing something very classic. So what do? You focus on that production, and I'm not even going to claim to understand what he did. I've never really, looked into the techno bobbins of it all. But whatever knobs they decided to actually use, it was a milestone because you didn't just get a change in rock music production. This influenced pop. You look at the pop.
Done it again?
No, but exactly. it's you cannot deny the influence of this album across the contemporary pop spectrum,
that's fair.
Across the board. It's landmark, not just because of the quality of the songs, which were benefited from that production, and it's 45 minutes, just right. That's it. That's how long an album should be, especially when it's like straight up rock songs like this, and every song is a banger. Every song is an absolute banger. It's not Route One. I say this.
No, I don't think it is. No,
absolutely. Langer. We associate Langer with AC/DC. They were a Route One band, but they did it very, very well.
Yeah.
It ebbed and flowed. You got the choruses. You got the build-ups. Stuff like Fall In and Die Hard the Hunter. They're not just
love Die Hard.
Exactly. They're not just straight away. And for me, you got one of the best closing songs ever. Okay, Billy's Got a Gun. And I say you got the singles, which weren't even singles or hits in the UK.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing, isn't it? With the whole Def Leppard thing. And obviously, we'll come on to Hysteria in a minute where it did change, but maybe it's because they were so British. That's why the Americans slapped them up. I mean,
it's a strange one. I'll be honest. I think it's just the songs. I think the songs and the production
radio anthems.
Yeah, I mean, again, bear in mind MTV. We're 2 years into MTV. They had a couple of videos. Like I say, they're still quite young. They look great. They got the choruses. They got the sound. That's they were tailor made for MTV. I think collectively they all nailed that. And of course, Britain at this point, they're not really an MTV band. There's not really an MTV at this point in Britain. No. So that is why America latched onto them. And I think maybe again the music press were a little bit snotty about them because they were sort of pushing towards the Americana of it all, and not gritty, sort of raw, down to earth, metal heroes like Iron Maiden or even Judas Priest, who were, let's face it, conquering the US market as well.
Yeah.
So it was a bit weird. It was a bit inconsistent, but this is one of my top 10 rock albums and always will be. I think it's flawless. It really is. And especially when you consider the changes. I mean, during this time, obviously Pete Willis, got kicked out of the band. Was being too much of a rock star. I'm afraid.
It's even more ridiculous than getting kicked out of Hawkwind.
Impressive, yeah. And of course, he was replaced.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what an album! What an album, quite frankly.
Well, let's argue Hysteria then, because this is where Def Leppard took over the world. Do you know what I mean?
And they did, yeah. That's the thing.
They were not even the biggest rock band at the time. They were one of the biggest bands on the planet at this point.
Yeah. So this is 1987. This is released. So MTV is taken over the world.
Yeah.
The production that they really pushed has transformed a lot of things, and let's face it, Def Leppard had been through a lot by that point.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
One arm down basically, where they needed two arms. But my God, they worked around it. And
fair play to him. Yeah, he completely retaught himself how to play drums, didn't he? And when you listen to this album, obviously you can tell it's completely different. But I don't know, they still nail it.
This is the thing; it works. Okay, the production has been. It's the sixth man, isn't it? That production. It's we can say it's always there to just embellish and improve it, but it was the sixth man, sixth instrument, whatever you want to call it. I think without that production, they would have fallen by the wayside, or certainly not been anywhere near as big. And of course, when you've got that, you've got the foundation to do something a bit more interesting with the drumming.
And now you've got the hit singles, like the proper bona fide hit singles. Pour Some Sugar on Me, probably the greatest stripper anthem of all time.
We don't recommend.
No, absolutely not. But again, it was
messy.
and the cream it gets everywhere. Animal, obviously, Hysteria, the title track. I mean, as far as ballads go, that's one of the best.
Yeah, Armageddon it. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, again, it's an 80s rock record. It's not particularly progressive in parts, but you appreciate that. You realise that.
I don't want Def Leppard to be progressive.
No.
I want Def Leppard to be Def Leppard.
I mean, to be fair, that's probably rude to leopards who can't hear properly. So it's we're already in dodgy territory. But I mean, look, it's a great record. Is it too overproduced? I think that's always a question that pops up in our discussions. And for me, this is why Pyromania does win as an album, because it just got everything right. Hysteria, as great as it is, it's just a bit longer maybe than it needs to be, and for production it's a bit further.
I think the length is an important part, because it's probably 2 songs too long.
Yes, I think so.
And the 2 songs on the end aren't as strong as the rest of the album for me anyway. So
certainly I think those last 2, maybe 3 songs
could have been B-sides.
But I mean, ultimately they're not bad songs. They don't.
No, they're not
skippables. I think.
No, but when you've got Animal and Pour Some Sugar on Me and all these great songs, the last 2, it just kind of dips off just a little bit, just tiny bit.
But this is it. When you consider what, I mean, by this point, 1987, and it's a strange period because you've got, the hair metal thing is king of the world at this point.
Unfortunately.
And as much as there's some great stuff, and we're starting to scrape the barrel at this point in time with some of the bands.
Yeah, definitely.
And of course, you've got one band just pretty much make everyone look foolish around the same year, don't they? When Guns N' Roses, sort of came on later on.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So, but I mean, this 1987. It's the year of Whitesnake's self-titled album.
Yeah.
Aerosmith came back properly, I think, after a few years struggling.
Fuck Aerosmith.
So, I'm indifferent, but
fuck Aerosmith.
But not, it's this is a symbolic album for that year.
Yeah, it
I think,
absolutely is.
absolutely.
And I think while we're on the point of the comeback as well, the Donington performance after this, well, around this time, was it 86 or was it 87?
Well, this would have been 87. I don't, because they didn't play in 88. We know that.
Yeah.
So it must have been 87.
Yeah, it would have been 87 when it obviously the comeback and.
Well, it could have been 86. I don't know. I'll have to go back to my glam metal book.
That reception they got at Donington, was just like unreal.
Yeah.
That's kind of like moment in history sort of thing. So you're right. They went through a lot, and they were the biggest band in the world. This is 25 million albums. 25 million.
Only
albums.
25.
That's a quarter of their entire album sales. In one record. It's mad. 4 million in 9 months. It was released in January. By September, it was 9 million in that time. It just crazy numbers, and they deserved it. They absolutely deserved it. But we talk about these three, but there is obviously a couple of others.
He could pick the albums up.
I'll do the dirty way this time.
Yeah.
Obviously the debut on Through the Night.
I mean,
is there an argument for it?
It's a good album. It's a good album. That's I'm not going to blow smoke up its backside, but it's a good album. It's mostly listenable. I love Rock Brigade. I really do. That's a great opener.
Hello America says it all really, doesn't it?
Yeah. This is it. They're not shying away from their intentions. But look, if Mark Langer saw something in them with that album, then that's good enough for me.
Yeah. But see, I've also got an argument for this because this was my entry point with Def Leppard, right? Not Hysteria. So
it's an interesting because I think just because of my listening habits even as a child, I think I was familiar with the Hysteria hits, and obviously this was a bit of a comeback for me. I like Let's Get Rocked at the time.
Great song.
I'm not sure what I think about it at this point, or the video, quite frankly. Kids, that's one to check out. But look, lots going on in that period. For me, I think, during this, obviously, 3 years before this album, Steve Clark died.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that previous 3-album run was it. That's when you had a solid lineup.
Yeah, she's songwriting as well, and you take a major songwriter out of the game, and it's obviously going to change.
And I think that's the thing for me. That single, "Let's Get Rocked," that didn't have Eddie Clark on it at all. Whereas some of the stuff he had already co-written, stuff like Heaven Is. For me, I think that sounds a lot better. That sounds a lot more organic and flowed a lot better. Whereas Let's Get Rocked was very much a let's write a hit. And the thing is, in 1992, it kind of stood out a bit because of what was going on in the rock spectrum at that point in time. You got a ballad there. Have you ever needed something so bad? And it's
the Def Leppard and ballad thing. When they got as far as When Love and Hate Collide, it just all went to shit, didn't it? So they had it right, and obviously not everybody can stay that consistent, but it didn't carry on.
The thing is though, and maybe this is a bit cynical of me, I think at that point you've had grunge basically. That's come and gone pretty much.
Yeah.
You've got all sorts of alternative rock stuff going on. Both with the American pop punk stuff and alt rock. You've got the British indie and Britpop stuff going on, and I think Def Leppard think, what, we can't compete with that in terms of contemporary approach, and all of our fans are older and probably they're getting on a bit, so let's stick to the ballads, let's stick to the easier listening stuff. So I can almost acknowledge and respect that choice.
It's the full length video though.
Well,
if you haven't seen it, right, if you've got 12 minutes of your life that you don't ever want to get back, go and watch it. It is something else. It's the most self-indulgent wank I think I've ever heard, but it's definitely worth watching. So if you haven't watched it, go and watch it. It's worth checking out. But look, the 3 albums that we focused on, they are the best 3. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, these are absolutely timeless albums. I think this is time capsule territory. I think this is Shovies into an alien spacecraft, and then several thousand years later you get a complaint to say how the hell do we play these? So, I think
that's fair. That's where we are. Right. Before we go, I just want to mention this rather attractive lineup up here from Radio City Beer Works. In particular, this one, the new one. So this was done in collaboration with Metal Hammer magazine, and you need to try this. It's called Pale Satan. It looks like a milkshake. tastes fucking fantastic. You can get it from rcbw.shop, all of these, and loads more as well. So, you know, go and check them out. And, you know, if you're Essex based as well, get down to Radio City Social, come to one of our gigs, or just go down there for a beer, because it's just the fucking best place.
If you're in London, it's a half hour on the train.
And it's better than London.
Get out of London. Everyone, you know, London's been done. I love London, but it's been done to death.
Yeah, exactly.
Get out of town.
Exactly. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you disagree with what we're saying about these albums, then let us know in the comments below, and then obviously give us a subscribe and the likes and all that kind of thing. And we'll be back again for some more waffle in a few days, probably. Cheers. Stay metal.